Hi everyone. Today's video is all about what to do in somatic movement when you have that feeling of, I can't do it like that, right? It will happen if it hasn't already. Essentially, is learning something new always smooth and easy? Obviously it is not, right? We all know that. That is clear to us that when we learn something new, there are going to be bumps in the road. And with somatic movement, just like learning any other new skill, you will hear me describe the movement or cue the movements, and you are going to at some point have that thought of, I can't do it like that, right? You're going to have that moment. And maybe it's a little bit more likely if you start the work through doing recordings or even maybe in live group sessions, because it isn't possible for me to cover every single eventuality of everyone's unique experience in those kinds of sessions. So you could start out with one-to-one sessions, right? And even though you'll still probably have one of those, nope, I can't do it like that moments, I would, of course, be able to give you personal feedback and reassurance about that. But not everyone can access one-to-one sessions. And even if you do those, you are still going to have those moments. You're still going to have that learning a new skill, just can't avoid going, what is going on, right? No matter how you start out with this work. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of elements of somatic movement that can fox us to start with. And for anyone who's already doing this work, you will almost certainly recognise yourself in some of these. And some of them are my own personal experience as I have done this work, right? So you're not alone. So, for example, something that is quite tricky is being able to use the centre of the body when you're doing the back lift to do that work of having the head and the leg float up away from the floor, right? Sensing the deep muscles when doing stuck in the mud, anyone? Anyone do that and go, nope, nothing, can't sense anything at all? Some of us have the head moving in a very different way to what is cued when we're doing the arch and flatten. And maybe you think, how are people doing it the other way? Like, how is that even possible, right? Doing the flatten without pushing through the feet, that's really hard at first. That was definitely one of mine. Letting go of the glutes to let the heels flop out at the end of the back lift rather than holding tight. And what about the classic of having the shoulders pressing forwards and back in the opposite way to what is being cued in the wash rag? I know lots and lots of us had that one. And there are many more, right? And this is because the patterns that we have habitually stored in our soma, our living body, as we experience it from the inside, those patterns have restricted our flexibility in movement. And I'm not talking about doing the splits or touching your toes. I'm talking about flexibility in terms of moving in different ways. And we actually go, I can't do it. Don't understand what's being asked of me, right? And when we're learning something that is so unfamiliar for our soma, when we do this sort of work, there are just so many layers that come in over time, so much detail, so much nuance. There are bound to be some elements that we just can't figure out right in this moment, right? I could tell you every detail that I know, and it still might not be right for you at that point in time, right? We're not ready for all of that to drop in. So we layer up as we go along. So what can we do when we have those moments of, I am really not getting this, I really can't do that, right? I'm going to give you some ideas for you to bear in mind as you do your practice to make it a little bit easier for you to ride those waves of don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so firstly, and I've said this already, know that you are not alone. And it is completely okay to not have it all down just yet, right? We cannot know it all from the moment we start. And that's absolutely fine. There is no judgment around that. Another thing you can do is remember that each cue is an invitation to explore movement, to explore what you sense. It's not so much an instruction to follow, okay, as an invitation for exploration. And similarly with any questions that I use during classes, that is a prompt to explore your own experience. There is no right or wrong answer. So it's always okay for your answer to a question to be no, right? Or maybe it might be not yet, which leaves a little bit more openness to our experience, right? So maybe I say, can you do this? Or can you sense that? And you might be like, no, not yet, you know? It's also okay to have the answer of, I can't. Maybe I say, how can you do this? And you go, I can't do it. That's okay too, right? It's still giving us useful information. Oh, I can't do that. Interesting, right? And that leads me on to my next point, which is stay curious. Allow yourself to ponder why that might be happening in the way that it is, or why that might be happening in the way that it isn't, right? But again, there's no expectation to have the answer, okay? Really holding on to an understanding that the layers will come in over time and that no one expects you to have it all figured out right at the start, or actually even at any point in this work, because there's always something new to learn about how we move, how we sense, right? How we show up in the world. Give some compassion and understanding to the parts of yourself that might be frustrated or disappointed or whatever the feelings are about not having it all figured out yet, or not being where you'd like to be yet. Know that those feelings are so normal, and find maybe a little softness in yourself around having those feelings. They are so welcome. Know that things will change as you do the work. When you're ready for them, new ideas, new layers, new insights will drop in for you, and that will be the perfect time for you in your unique situation. The number of times people doing this work have suddenly gone, oh, I get that now, right? But you've got to come at it in your own time, in your own way, doing your own exploration, right? And when you do figure out something new, when you do have those, oh, I get it now moments, it's really, really okay to say to yourself, oh, I've not been doing it like that. Or, oh, I hadn't understood that before, right? I really want to normalise not knowing it all, because that is what learning is all about, right? We learn new things about things we don't know, right? And my final invitation, and these are all invitations just like they are in the actual somatic movement sessions themselves. My final invitation is to try and be as unjudgmental of yourself and where you're at and your progress as a friend might be, because there is no one harder on ourselves than ourselves, is there? So really, really knowing that it's okay to be exactly where we are right now, and that includes it being okay to have feelings of frustration about being exactly where we are right now. Knowing it all Doing it correctly is not the aim. The aim is to explore and to learn. And part of that is absolutely definitely not knowing it all. Part of that is making mistakes. Part of that is sometimes getting frustrated. And part of that is celebrating our insights and our progress and our learning as it happens, right? It just isn't possible to learn something new without mistakes, without misunderstandings, without missteps. And please just know that we welcome all of that in somatic movement. So if you haven't got started with me yet, feel free to get in touch. Maybe you want to come and meet us in the membership. Maybe you want to book some one-to-one sessions. And what you'll find with us is a reparative learning experience with no judgment. There's no naughty step, there's no sitting in the corner, there's no being laughed at when you don't know things. None of that stuff is going to happen in our sessions. And we can learn about, when we kind of put that judgment to one side, when there's a space where we feel like, oh yeah, I can make mistakes here, then we can really learn about our amazing somas and help them to do all of the things that we want and need to do in life. In our community, we absolutely love this practice for what it opens up for us, and we think you will too, and I do hope that you will give it a try. I'll see you in the next video.